Have you ever asked yourself how you see someone you used to know and you just do not recognize them? They have just transformed, they have become someone that you did not think was possible for them. They just changed so much, and you are wondering, how did they go from being that common person into that person that you have a hard time understanding? How do they go from being insecure to being confident? How do they go from being broke to being financially free? How do they go from being shy to actually be very confident? I've always been extremely fascinated about that until I understood that the only thing that changed were their habits. And so today I want to share with you 4 habits that have changed so much for me. And the first one is really to understand and to see every person and every situation in your life as your assignments. So when I started college, I remember I had so much fear of failure. I genuinely would study so much and not show up at my exams because I was so scared of failing my exams. But somehow, because I started seeing this process of getting my degree as my assignment to understand what it is that's holding me back from believing in myself, because I started seeing it this way, well, I went from being that person that was so scared of showing up on her exams to actually show up and succeed on my exams effortlessly. And let me tell you something, in between me studying and failing, and in between me actually showing up and succeeding on all my exams, it's not so much how I studied that changed, but how I was thinking in my head. That changed everything. And that's what I mean by the assignment. Once I started seeing me passing my exams as my assignment, everything changed for me. Because now I was learning the lessons, and I was not only learning them to get my degree, but I was also learning those lessons for me to become a better person. And there were a few lessons that I had to learn along the way, and let me share them with you. The first one was that I needed to change my why. The reason why I signed up for my marketing degree was simply because it was told that I had to, because I did not know what I wanted to do in my life, because I had no direction for myself, and because that was the only option that I saw back then. So my why wasn't strong enough for me to show up and to be motivated. So the first thing I needed to do is to change my why. And once I started changing my why into I have to do it, and I started thinking of it as I want to show myself that I can get my degree easily and effortlessly, everything started changing for me. Now, the second lesson is that I needed to stop listening to everyone around me that was telling me how hard it was to get your degree and how hard your exams were, to actually isolate myself and to kind of make my own beliefs and kind of tell myself that it's doable, and if I show up, that's the only thing that matters. Then the third lesson was that I had to understand that I cannot do more than I can do. Meaning that my job is to study as much as I can, to leave my exam feeling like I couldn't have done anything more than what I just did right now. And from that moment on, if I have that feeling of I have done everything I could, if I succeed or fail, it's not my problem anymore, because I did everything I could. And from that moment on, what I believe is that life takes over because you did your part, and now you have to surrender and trust that life is taking over from here. And I know it sounds very like spiritual, but I really do believe that I have had proofs of what I'm saying right now. Let me give you one. I remember I was so bad, so bad with statistics. I genuinely did not understand anything of it. I was just trying to understand. I would go to my classes, and somehow I had a very hard time being good at it. So I remember the day before my exams, I was studying like 3 days in advance, studying every day without understanding. I would basically just rewrite the exercises that we did at school, because I thought maybe if I know them by heart, somehow I'm going to know how to answer the questions on my exams. I knew that it didn't make any sense, but I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm going to show up anyway. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to go on YouTube and try to find the solutions. And I did everything I could. Everything I could. I remember staying awake until 12 p.m., putting my alarm on at 4 a.m. to continue studying, because I wanted to show myself that I did everything I could to pass my exam. And what happens is that a friend of mine, right before the exam, 1 hour before the exam, comes to me and tells me, hey, the teacher told me that those 3 exercises were the most important ones. So what I did right before the exam, I just wrote down those 3 exercises, just learning them by heart. And I remember getting to my exam and having exactly those 3 questions. And this is where I understood that you are only responsible for doing the best you can, and then surrender, and then know that something above you, a higher power or a life or God of your own understanding, will take care of you from that moment on. So those were really the 3 lessons from going from being that insecure student that didn't want to show up on her exams because I was so afraid, to actually become that confident student that would show up with so much confidence that I knew that I was going to succeed. And because of that mindset shift, because I decided to see this process of getting my degree as my assignment, everything changed for me. And I think my life started changing from there on, because I started seeing life as a game. I started thinking to myself, okay, well, if that version of myself thought that succeeding on my exams was impossible, and somehow I found a way to change my mindset to kind of get there, well, I can do that with everything else in my life. And that's what happened. Everything that comes into my life now, instead of seeing it as an obstacle, as a challenge, I see it as an assignment. How am I going to make that happen? What do I need to change in my mind to make that happen? And when you do so, what happens is that you are no longer afraid. You are no longer limiting yourself. You know that you can do and have everything you want, but there is simply something you need to learn about your mindset, your way of thinking, or the way you feel about yourself that you need to change in order to get from point E to point B. The second habit that changed my life was to make my mindset and growth my priority number 1. So here, I remember when I started working on myself, I really started from a bad place. I was dealing with so much pain and I wasn't happy in my life. And so for me, the first step towards giving myself everything that I want and need in my life was to start working on myself and to start healing myself. And I remember when I started working on myself, it didn't make me feel that good. I wasn't happy. I wasn't excited about it. I had to push myself. I had to force myself. And somehow, once I started doing that, I experienced my first momentum. And it is when I started experiencing a momentum for the first time that I understood, wow, that's why people work on themselves. Working on yourself and making that your priority will always bring you to the next level. It will always make you reach a level that you did not think was possible for you. But in order to experience that, there is something you need to learn. There is a mindset shift that you need to understand. There is a book that you need to read. There is a podcast that you need to listen to. There is a box in your mind that needs to get opened so that you can get to the next level. And the only way you do so is by making your self-growth and your mindset your priority number 1. The third habit that changed my life was to choose love. So what do I mean by choosing love? So there are 2 energies in the world. You have the energy of fear and you have the energy of love. And when you live in love, life is beautiful. When you live in the energy of love, you forgive other people. When you live in the energy of love, you feel whole. You love other people. You understand that everyone is one and that there is no separation. When you live in the energy of fear, you are hurt, jealous, you keep grudges, you have all those negative emotions that are at the end of the day only hurting you. And so when I started understanding that every time I was feeling negative emotions, every time I was feeling down, it was because I was perceiving the situation out of the lens of fear. And so in my head, what I needed to do is to change my perception. I have no control over what happens to me, but I have full control over how I decide to perceive that. And once I started making it a habit to go from fear to love, every time I feel down, every time I feel anxious, my life started changing. And I have to stop myself and think, okay, I'm choosing fear right now, otherwise I wouldn't feel like that. How can I choose love? How can I perceive this situation in a way that makes me feel at peace? You can always decide to choose love, and you do so by forgiving, by having compassion for the people that have hurt you the most, because when you do so, you free yourself. You live in that energy of peace, profound peace and love. And that has changed so much for me. The last habit, which is the one that I'm working so much on right now, is to understand and to be the master of your own energy field. So you have no control over others. You have no control over what others achieve in their life. You have no control over what others think of you. You have no control over anyone else than yourself. And your energy is the most precious thing in your life, because your energy is everything. You attract what you are. You attract what is in your energy field. And so if you are concerned about what others are thinking of you, or how others might perceive you, well, you are not mastering your energy field, because you are thinking out of their perception, and you are not being true to yourself because of that. But when you understand that you are in this world alone, that you have you and that's it, that you can love people, that you can have relationships with people, but at the end of the day, you are born alone and you are going to die alone. And so the only thing you can control is yourself. And the way you control how you live and the way you control how you feel is by being master of your energy field. By deciding that you no longer are going to let anyone have any power over you, and that you are going to decide to not care anymore. Because it's a choice. You can just simply decide to not care anymore and to do you. And guess what happens when you do so? People can genuinely sense when you really do not care. And that's what I want you to get. And that's a habit that I'm working on right now. And yes, those are the 4 habits that really changed so much for me. I hope they resonate with you. If they do, like, share, subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And I will also link all my information here below so we can keep in touch. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.